मैं श्री डॉक्टर नरेंद्र जाधव जी से अनुरोध करूंगी कि वो आए, लेकिन उनके आने के पूर्व मैं उनका एक संक्षिप्त परिचय यहाँ पर प्रस्तुत कर दूं आप सभी के लिए। आदरणीय डॉक्टर नरेंद्र दामोदर जाधव भारत के एक प्रमुख अर्थशास्त्री, शिक्षाविद, लोक नीति विशेषज्ञ, प्रोफेसर और अंग्रेजी, मराठी और हिंदी के लेखक रहे हैं। आप बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर संबंधी विषयों के विशेषज्ञ हैं। संप्रति आप राज्यसभा के सदस्य हैं और इसके पूर्व आप भारत के योजना आयोग और राष्ट्रीय सलाहकार समिति के भी सदस्य रह चुके हैं। आपने सावित्रीबाई फुले पुणे यूनिवर्सिटी के कुलपति का कार्यभार भी संभाला है और इंटरनेशनल मॉनेटरी फंड तथा रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया के लिए इकोनॉमिक रिसर्च के अध्यक्ष पद पर भी आपने कार्य किया है। आपने 67 नेशनल और इंटरनेशनल अवार्ड प्राप्त किए हैं, जिसमें कि ऑनररी डीलिट डिग्री और कमांडर ऑफ द ऑर्डर ऑफ एकेडमिक प्लान्स बाय द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ फ्रांस भी शामिल है। आपने 37 बुक्स का संपादन और लेखन किया है, जिनमें से 19 इंग्लिश, 13 मराठी और 5 हिंदी में है। 300 आपके 300 रिसर्च पेपर और आर्टिकल प्रकाशित हैं और 21 किताबें BR अम्बेडकर, डॉक्टर भीमराव अम्बेडकर जी के ऊपर आपकी प्रकाशित हैं। रविंद्रनाथ टैगोर पर आपने 3 पुस्तकें, ट्रिलॉजी लिखी है और जो कि उनकी पूरी जीवन गाथा को बताती है। उनके चुनी हुई कविताएं, छोटी कहानियां, नाटक आदि भी उसमें शामिल हैं। ऐसे विद्वान व्यक्तित्व को हम अपने बीच में पा करके अत्यंत उत्साहित हैं, आनंदित हैं। मैं आदरणीय डॉक्टर जाधव जी से अनुरोध करती हूँ कि अपने वक्तव्य के लिए, अपने बीज वक्तव्य के लिए वो आगे आए।
प्रोफेसर अमी उपाध्याय, यहाँ पर मौजूद सारे मान्यवर, सारे महानुभाव, सबको मेरा जय भीम। दोस्तों, it is indeed a great pleasure as well as an honor to be speaking to the students of Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University, Gujarat. I am going to speak both in English as well as in Marathi. But before I proceed with the subject, a small correction. जिस बहन ने मेरा इंट्रोडक्शन दिया वो बहुत ही अच्छा इंट्रोडक्शन दिया, लेकिन उसमें एक छोटी सी गलती हो गई। वो थोड़ा सा पुराना सीवी उन्होंने यूज किया। मेरी किताबों की संख्या 41 है और 2 किताबें प्रिंटिंग में अभी जा रही है। तो मुख्य विषय में आते हुए सबसे पहले तो मैं भारत रत्न डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर जी के जयंती के अवसर पर उनको कृतज्ञता पूर्वक वंदन करता हूं। मैं तो ये कहते आया हूं कि हमारी माता पिता ने हमें जन्म जरूर दिया है, लेकिन मेरे जैसे करोड़ों लोगों को मानव के रूप में जीने के लिए जो उपलब्धि कराई है वो सिर्फ केवल एक व्यक्ति ने, और उस व्यक्ति का नाम है महामानव भारत रत्न डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर। इसीलिए उनके जयंती के अवसर पर बड़ी कृतज्ञता के साथ मैं उनको वंदन करता हूं और विषय के तरफ मुड़ता हूं। डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर जी के आयु के अनेक पहलू हैं, तो उनके 12 पहलू प्रमुख कहे जा सकते हैं। उसमें पहला पहलू है ज्ञान मार्गी डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर। दूसरा पहलू है अर्थशास्त्री डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर। तीसरा पहलू है समाज सुधारक डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर। चौथा पहलू है अर्थ प्रशासक डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर। पांचवा पहलू है शिक्षाविद डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर। छठा पहलू है समाज शास्त्रज्ञ डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर। आठवां पहलू है मानव वंश शास्त्रज्ञ डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर। वो सातवां पहलू था। आठवां पहलू ये है कि राजनीतिक तज्ञ डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर। नौवां जो है पहलू वो है विधि मंत्री डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर। 10वां पहलू है भारतीय संविधान के प्रमुख शिल्पकार डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर। 11वां पहलू है भाषावार प्रांत रचना के विश्लेषक डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर। और 12वां पहलू है बौद्ध धर्म चक्र प्रवर्तक डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर। ये सारे 12 पहलू पर तो मैं बोलने के लिए तो आज समय नहीं है, लेकिन आज के इस चर्चा में मैं बोलने जा रहा हूं वो एक पहलू पर, उनका सबसे महत्वपूर्ण पहलू जो है उसके ऊपर। आई एम गोइंग टू स्पीक ऑन डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर एज एन इंटेलेक्चुअल colossus and a great national leader. Bharat Ratna Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar was undoubtedly one of the most illustrious sons of our country. He appeared on the socio-political scene of India in the early 1920s and then remained in the forefront of social, cultural, economic and political transformation of our country during the closing decades of the British Empire. After India became independent in 1947, he played a very significant role in laying the foundation of modern India. Dr. Ambedkar was a great social reformer, a crusader of human rights, an emancipator of downtrodden masses of India. He was truly an intellectual colossus and a great national leader who dedicated all his life to bring a new dawn of enlightenment to modern India. Dr. Ambedkar's life is an incredible saga of struggles and achievement. He was born in a Mahar caste, which is one of the many untouchable castes in Maharashtra. He experienced the pangs of untouchability when he had to interact with other people of social layers beyond the confines of the untouchable caste. Although he was humiliated every step of the way, he succeeded against all odds in securing the highest degrees from most reputable world-class universities. Just look at his academic background. मैं अभी ज्ञान मार्गी डॉक्टर अंबेडकर की बात कर रहा हूं। डॉक्टर अंबेडकर was essentially an economist. मूल रूप से वो अर्थशास्त्री थे। उनकी सारी जो उपाधियां हैं उसमें से एक बैरिस्टर की उपाधि छोड़ के बाकी सारी उपाधियां ये अर्थशास्त्र में है। जैसे कि 1915 में उन्होंने अमेरिका के कोलंबिया यूनिवर्सिटी से एमए की पदवी हासिल की, विषय था अर्थशास्त्र। उसके बाद में उसी कोलंबिया यूनिवर्सिटी से डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर जी ने 1917 में पीएचडी की उपाधि प्राप्त की, डॉक्टरेट प्राप्त की। उसका विषय भी अर्थशास्त्र यही था। उसके बाद में वो इंग्लैंड चले गए और इंग्लैंड में जाके लंदन स्कूल ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स जैसे सबसे महान तब के जो यूनिवर्सिटी थी और आज भी बहुत अहम है, वो लंदन स्कूल ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स से उन्होंने डॉक्टर ऑफ साइंस की उपाधि प्राप्त की। उसका विषय भी था अर्थशास्त्र। इसका मतलब है कि उनकी सारी उपाधियां जो है वो अर्थशास्त्र में ही है। वो मूलतः अर्थशास्त्री थे और उसके साथ साथ विलायत में इंग्लैंड में उन्होंने डॉक्टर ऑफ साइंस की पढ़ाई करते वक्त उन्होंने बैरिस्टर की पदवी भी हासिल की, उपाधि भी हासिल की और वो बैरिस्टर भी बन गए। ये सारी उपाधियां हासिल करने के बाद डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर he came back to India. Now please understand this that we have had many economists. Two of the Indian economists have got Nobel Prize so far. But who was the greatest economist of our country ever? मेरी राय में, और मैं स्वयं एक अर्थशास्त्री हूं, तो ये जिम्मेदारी के साथ मैं कह सकता हूं कि हमारे देश में आज तक जो भी अर्थशास्त्री हो गए हैं, उसमें चाणक्य के बाद सबसे बड़ा अर्थशास्त्री अगर कौन हुआ होगा तो वो एक व्यक्ति है, वो है डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर. डॉक्टर अम्बेडकर returned to India with all these great degrees and devoted his life to fight against the caste-ridden social order which was characterized by injustice and denial of human. Please also note that Dr. Ambedkar was never favored either by family fortune, nor he had any political lineage, but by sheer grit of his determination, hard work, supreme courage, and selfless sacrifice, Dr. Ambedkar overcame bitter political opposition and ills of caste discrimination to become the principal architect of the Indian Constitution of independent India. He then proceeded to build the safeguards for affirmative action for establishing a more equitable society capable of delivering social justice to millions of downtrodden in our country. In this process, Dr. Ambedkar emerged as the conscious keeper of modern India. It is not surprising at all that Dr. Ambedkar was voted in August 2012 as the greatest Indian after Mahatma Gandhi with an overwhelming majority of votes, and this happened in an e-poll arranged by some TV channels. Many Indians, especially the middle class and the elite, found the results of this election, so to say, surprising. The top 5 contenders for the greatest Indian after Mahatma Gandhi, they were Dr. Ambedkar, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, Vallabhbhai Patel, Jawaharlal Nehru, and Mother Teresa in that order. You'll be surprised that in the popular votes, valid votes, which were 4.3 million, Dr. Ambedkar received 46% of the total votes. So the number of votes that Dr. Ambedkar received were actually more than the votes of all the remaining great people combined. So Dr. Ambedkar was chosen as the greatest Indian after Gandhi, and this happened in spite of being largely neglected from the mainstream media and even from the Indian educational system. And I am speaking to an educational institution here. Look at this. Traditionally, the textbooks of India are replete with the stories of life and times of Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru. The pedagogy portrays them, and of course, rightly so, as the leaders of national stature in prose and poem, in skit and song. Regrettably, however, Dr. Ambedkar appears only marginally, and that even when he does appear, he is invariably referred to as the leader of the untouchables. Dr. Ambedkar's representation in pedagogy has always been more as a caste leader and not as a national leader. I am convinced it is grossly unfair, friends, to characterize Dr. Ambedkar simply as the leader of untouchables. Of course, he was greatest leader of untouchables, but Dr. Ambedkar was not simply a leader of untouchables, not even leader of only the oppressed classes of our country. He was a national leader, period. Dr. Ambedkar's erudition, his mass movements, his role in government in heralding action towards inclusive growth, gender equality, emphasizing education for all, employment and skill development with liberal welfare measures for labor, they all show that he was a patriot of sterling order. It was Dr. Ambedkar who maintained that we all must be Indians first, Indians last, and nothing but Indians in the interregnum. In the course of his most eventful life, Dr. Ambedkar made an outstanding contribution as an economist, as a sociologist, as an anthropologist, as an educationist, as a journalist, as an authority on a comparative religion, as a policy maker, administrator, and of course as a parliamentarian. In spite of being a statesman and a mass leader, Dr. Ambedkar always remained a reflective thinker and erudite scholar. Despite being engrossed in the mass movements and the political ups and downs and all the political upheavals, Dr. Ambedkar wrote remarkable treatises on economics, on sociology, on anthropology, on politics, on law, on religion, on culture, which is clearly a hallmark of an intellectual. That is why I call him an intellectual colossus. Show me another politician in the history of India who comes anywhere even close to writing so many scholarly books that Dr. Ambedkar wrote. None in the entire history of India. And you put him only as a Dalit leader? Isn't that very, very unfair? But this is something that has happened in India. That is why I'm delighted that in this educational institution, this is being corrected. Dr. Ambedkar was a prolific writer. No other politician in India has produced anywhere close to the voluminous writing that Dr. Ambedkar had. The sheer volume of his writings is amazing. He completed 22 books, scholarly books and monographs. And at the time of his Mahaparinirvan, he had left 10 books which were incomplete at various stages. In addition, he submitted 10 major memoranda and statements to various authorities, including the British government. And then he wrote several research papers, book reviews, hundreds of articles from time to time in Marathi in various fortnightly journals that he had started. He started with Prabuddha, he ended with Prabuddha Bharat. He started with a Mook Nayak, then Janata, then Mook Nayak, Bahishkrut Bharat, Janata, and then finally Prabuddha Bharat. The progression is also very, very interesting. The analytical rigor, lucidity, insights, and passion that Dr. Ambedkar's writings exude are truly, truly phenomenal. And the range of Dr. Ambedkar's writing is also equally astounding. Just look at his writings on politics. He wrote 11 books on politics and books and monographs. The most important political book that he wrote was Pakistan or Partition of India. Not many people know about this. The demand for Pakistan was made for the first time in March 1940. By December 1940, Dr. Ambedkar had produced a 480 pages book on Pakistan issue. And this was the first book of its kind. And in 1945, a second edition of that book appeared. In fact, at the time of partition, when big negotiations were going on between Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Patel, and Muhammad Ali Jinnah, at that time, the second edition of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's book, Thoughts on Pakistan, was the basis for the standard source of reference for both parties. And then he wrote many other books on politics, classics like Federation versus Freedom in 1939, Ranade, Gandhi and Jinnah in 1943, What Congress and Gandhi Have Done to Untouchables in 1945, States and Minorities in 1947, and Thoughts on Linguistic States in 1955. From politics, let's come to economics. That was the subject which was closest to his heart. Dr. Ambedkar wrote two very important books on economics. He wrote more, but I'm focusing on the two most important books. First was his PhD dissertation. The title was Evolution of Provincial Finances in British India. What does Ambedkar do in that book? In that book, Dr. Ambedkar takes a historical review of the relationship between the British central government and British provinces during the period 1800 to 1910. And then at the end, he talks about what should be the relationship between the British central government and the British provinces. So this is what is the subject of center-state financial relations. Today, when Modi ji talks about cooperative federalism, today when we talk about finance commission, and we all know that the provision for finance commission was also introduced by Dr. Ambedkar in the constitution. What does finance commission do? Finance commission basically does, what it does is the tax and non-tax revenue that is collected by the government, how is it to be shared between the central government and the states? What should be the principles governing the allocation of funds to various states? Those are the recommendations are made by the Finance Commission. So far, 15 Finance Commissions have submitted their reports, and 16th one has submitted partly their report. If you see the basis of all these Finance Commission reports, you will find there is one and the only book as a standard source of reference, and that is Dr. Ambedkar's PhD dissertation written in 1927. And the book, it came in 1927. Dr. Ambedkar's second book on economics, a very big one, the most important one, is The Problem of Rupee and its Origin and its Solution. Now, this is a book which was his dissertation for Doctor of Science degree at the London School of Economics. What does he do in that book? In that book, he talks about how money has evolved in India. And then at the end, he discusses a very important issue, which was very hot at the time, as to what should be the ideal currency system for a country like India. There were two candidates. Some people were saying it should be gold standard. Some others were saying it should be gold exchange standard. What is the difference between the two? Put it in very simple, rather simplistic terms. Under the gold standard, money itself is used as a medium of exchange, whereas under the gold exchange standard, it is paper currency which is used as money, and it is backed by gold with the central bank of the country. Now, in that debate, that time's greatest economist of the world, and still considered one of the finest, John Maynard Keynes, he wrote a book and he said that for a developing country like India, it should be the gold exchange standard that should be recommended as the right kind of economic system, the currency system. When Keynes said that, you can imagine everybody supported him. The only person who stood up against it was Dr. Ambedkar. Dr. Ambedkar's argument was that the gold exchange standard has a great, as Keynes is saying, gold standard is useful because it is flexible. It is flexible and therefore it does not put any undue restrictions on the government to control money supply. It allows governments a free hand. Dr. Ambedkar's point was that this is a double-edged weapon. It can work positively, it can work negatively. If there is an irresponsible government, then there would be too much liquidity generated because the government has no restriction. There would be a relentless expansion of liquidity, and that would create inflation. That would create a situation of too much money chasing too few goods. The result would be inflation, and inflation is an iniquitous form of taxation which hurts the poor the most. And therefore, he recommended a modified form of gold standard. Many people do not know that Dr. Ambedkar returned to India in 1923, and in year 1926, a very important commission came to India, which was called Hilton Young Commission. Their objective was to establish Reserve Bank of India, the central bank for the country. So they came here in 1926, and Dr. Ambedkar gave a very important testimony before them, and he made similar kind of arguments there. And then in 1935, 1st April 1935, the Reserve Bank of India was established. So in a way, Dr. Ambedkar played an important role in foundation of the central bank of our country, that is the Reserve Bank of India. That was the economist in him. Let's turn to sociology. In sociology, Dr. Ambedkar wrote several books. The most important one is Annihilation of Caste. If I list all the books in terms of importance, his most important book was the last book, that is Buddha and his Dhamma. Next to that was this book called Annihilation of Caste, which he wrote in 1936. And this is the one which is phenomenal. It was a speech that he was supposed to deliver in Lahore on the invitation of Jat Pat Todak Mandal. When he wrote that speech, and when the organizers read the draft of the speech, they fainted, because he had made a frontal attack on the caste system, and Jat Pat Todak Mandal could not digest it, and they said that we'll have to cancel you change the wording of this. And Dr. Ambedkar was Dr. Ambedkar. He said, I will refuse to change even a single word. If you want to cancel the conference, go ahead and do it. So they canceled the conference, and that speech, written but not delivered, was published by Dr. Ambedkar as a book, along with all the correspondence. And on that book also, he had a big fight with Mahatma Gandhi, but that's a different subject. On anthropology, Dr. Ambedkar wrote provocatively 2 original books. In 1948, he wrote a book called Untouchables. And in 1946, he had written another book, Who Were Shudras? And these are anthropology original books. And in the preface, he says that I challenge the leading anthropologists to challenge my thoughts, to oppose and show me. I have given a hypothesis. Please prove me wrong. Don't ignore this. Unfortunately, in India, his books he's never recognized as a anthropologist, and his books have been ignored. This is the fate of our country. On religion, Dr. Ambedkar wrote his magnum opus, Buddha and his Dhamma, towards the end of his life. When Dr. Ambedkar, so that all these books clearly shows what an intellectual colossus that Dr. Ambedkar was. Never before in the Indian socio-economico-political scene was a leader who was such a great scholar and intellectual colossus. Dr. Ambedkar returned to India. Dr. Ambedkar returned to India in 1923, and he entered the public life in 1924. First 10 years, his strategy was to work within the confines of the Hindu religion and try to improve that. The first movement that he organized was for accessing drinking water in a place called Mahad in Konkan region of Maharashtra. So that was the first one. Then he organized a series of efforts to have temple entry, to allow untouchables to enter temples. This went on for 10 years. So within the Hindu religion, with the framework of Hindu religion, he tried to improve that, but failed. And frustrated, in 1935, he made an announcement that I was born as a Hindu untouchable, but I'm not going to die as a Hindu. So he announced his intention to change the religion. He did not do that immediately. After 21 years thereafter, and in the meantime, he studied all the religions of the world and became an authority on comparative religion. And all the religious big shots, they tried to persuade him with all kinds of incentives, but he refused. And 21 years afterwards, in 1956, about 50 days before his Mahaparinirvan, he changed the religion to Buddhism, and with him 7.5 lakh people, 750,000 people changed their religion and embraced Buddhism. My parents were 2 of them. Now, world has seen, the world history is replete with examples of people who have changed their religion. But the mass change of religion has always happened either under sword or under gun or under incentive of money. The only example in the history of world where on the words of one person, 700,000 or more people give up their old religion and take up a new religion. Now, this is unparalleled in the world history. Well, friends, going back to his style, with Mahatma Gandhi, a lot of people, the relationship between Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar is a fascinating subject. I will only briefly talk about it, but it's a fascinating subject. They fought with each other so much. Their first meeting that took place in Mani Bhavan in Mumbai in September 1931, just before going to the second roundtable conference. That meeting ended, in that meeting, I don't know how much time I have, but, I would love to talk about that meeting. In that meeting, Mahatma Gandhi had invited Ambedkar to come and meet him. Ambedkar was 22 years younger than him. That meeting did not go well. In the beginning, Mahatma Gandhi told him, he kept him waiting for half an hour just to cool his heels. Mahatma Gandhi was also an astute politician. We all know that. Mahatma, but politician too. So after that, when Ambedkar was a young firebrand and he was about to burst when he was called in. And Mahatmaji's first opening remark was, I'm told that you have been writing against me and you have been talking against me. I want you to know that I have been working for untouchables from the time when you were not born. Dr. Ambedkar's immediate reply was, all old people take refuge of their age when they have no case, they have no argument. So Mahatma Gandhi was taken aback. He changed his trick, his style, and he said that recently I have given instruction that Congress should spend 25 lakh rupees on eradication of untouchability. Dr. Ambedkar responded, Bapuji, this was the wrong thing to do. You don't need to spend any money on this. You have to do only two things, very simple things, which do not require any money. For all the general members, people who want to become member of Congress party, they used to call it Charana member, because Charana, a quarter of rupee was the fees. All those Charana members should give in writing that in their private life, they will not follow untouchability. One, doesn't require any money. Second, he said that you should also make it obligatory for all Congress leaders that they should keep as an assistant, as a servant, one Dalit boy or a Dalit girl inside his house. You don't have to spend any money. A major transformation can take place, but that was something that was not acceptable to Gandhiji. So the meeting ended very badly, and while leaving the meeting, it is unimaginable that Mahatma Gandhi was a national leader and Dr. Ambedkar was only a promising upstart. But Dr. Ambedkar, what he said was, he said, Mahatma like you are like fleeting phantoms. They only raise the dust, not the level. And he stormed out. Then there was a big debate between them in the second roundtable conference. The issue there was, Ambedkar was fighting for independent electorates for untouchables, whereas Gandhiji was saying joint electorates is fine. I will give independent electorates to Muslims, Christians, even Anglo-Indians, and Sikhs, but I will not give separate electorates to Dalits, untouchables. And on that they fought, and all those debates are available. Unbelievably acrimonious exchange of words took place. And after that, it was decided that their authority should be given to the British Crown to take the final decision. All of them came back. 3 months after that, the British decision came, which was called Communal Award. And they had opted everything in favor of Dr. Ambedkar. At that time, Mahatma Gandhi was in a jail, Yerwada jail in Pune, from where Aniruddha Deshpande comes from, and I have been there for some time. in Aroda jail, where Mahatma Gandhi ji was there, he immediately announced fast unto death. Now just look at this. Gandhiji, along with others, had given in writing that whatever is the decision of the British government, we will accept it and we'll go by that. But when the decision, because he was completely sure that he will get the decision in his favor, when that did not happen, Mahatma Gandhi opted for a fast unto death, and Ambedkar refused to budge. So there was a very serious upheaval, and Dr. Ambedkar was called traitor, and they said that Mahatma Gandhi's life is in your hand. There was a lot of pressure put on him. So finally, Ambedkar gave in because life of Mahatma was in his hand. So there was a Pune Karar, Pune Pact of 1932, which went for joint electorates with reservation for scheduled caste or Dalits. Generally, it is understood that intellectually it was Dr. Ambedkar who won the battle, but politically it was Mahatma Gandhi who defeated Dr. Ambedkar in terms of having forced him to sign the Pune Pact. That was 1932. Now later on, when Dr. Ambedkar, now this may give you an impression as if Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Ambedkar were at loggerheads all the time, and there are people who are followers of Gandhiji who speak very badly about Dr. Ambedkar. There are those who are followers of Dr. Ambedkar who speak very badly of Mahatma Gandhi. Believe me, Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Ambedkar had a very cordial relation. How did Dr. Ambedkar become the chairman of the drafting committee of the Indian Constitution? He became that because of Mahatma Gandhi. Who made Dr. Ambedkar cabinet minister in charge of law? It was Mahatma Gandhi who did that. So those who take extreme positions do not understand that it is not black and white. There are various shades of gray in between, and that we don't understand. Both of these great men knew that nation was greater than either one of them, and that is why they had this great relationship. Well, friends, one final point that I want to make, about 2 points I want to make, and then I will stop. Now, one point is about the constitution writing, and another point is about linguistic reorganization of states. Both of them are very important. As far as the constitution is concerned, Dr. Ambedkar was, of course, the third point I want to make is about gender equality. As far as the constitution making is concerned, a lot of people, people like Arun Shourie have raised questions and doubts whether he wrote it, and there were so many people, who have been very mean to Dr. Ambedkar. Please understand and read what the chairman of the Constituent Assembly has said. Read what the members of the Constituent Assembly have said, those who are members of the drafting committee have said. Not only Dr. Ambedkar played a major role in drafting the Constitution, more importantly, the biggest role he played was piloting the Indian Constitution in the Constituent Assembly. Remember, Constituent Assembly had nearly 300 people, the best minds in our country. Every provision, do you know that every provision was accepted, approved by consensus, not by majority, not by simple majority, by consensus. So Dr. Ambedkar, for every provision, Dr. Ambedkar will tell both sides and conduct the debate, coordinate that, and arrive at a consensus. Do you realize how difficult it is? In a cooperative housing society meeting on deciding the salary of the liftman, people spend 4 hours, 5 hours debating that. Here we were talking about the future of the nation, and 298 best minds were there to forge a consensus among all of them and get the entire constitution by consensus was a horrendous task. And that task was completed single-handedly, even with the failing help by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. So if anybody raises any doubt about it, you should raise doubt about that person's integrity itself. Now I come to two more remaining points and I finish. One is about gender equality. Dr. Ambedkar is never given any credit for gender equality. If you talk about the big names about gender equality, Mahatma Phule, and absolutely rightly, and all those names come. Never Dr. Ambedkar. Do you know that there was something called Hindu Code Bill? Hindu Code Bill was a prelude to establishing the Uniform Civil Code. Nehru had given this job to him, Pandit Nehru, and he was working on that. The bill was drafted, and that bill was revolutionary in social sense, because the word Hindu is a misnomer there. It basically was a social reform bill. It had provisions like intercaste marriage. It had provisions like women getting equal rights as men, boys getting equal right as girls. You know, now we take it for granted, but that time it had shaken the people. And they said, what is this Ambedkar talking about? The debate on that went on 3.5 years. In the beginning, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, as the Prime Minister, had assured Dr. Ambedkar that even if my government falls, I will stand by you on Hindu Code Bill and we'll get it through. But the pressure mounted so much, and all the Sanatanis got together of all political parties. Mind you, Dr. Aniruddha Deshpande, everybody came together, and they were led by the then president, which was Dr. Rajendra Prasad. And they said that this bill will create a major problem in the Indian culture, Indian family system, and we don't want that. And President even threatened Prime Minister that if you get this approved and send it to me, I'm not going to sign it. So that created a major crisis. So Dr. Ambedkar was called by Panditji, and he was told that Dr. Ambedkar, we can't get the entire thing signed, so we'll go with 50%. Dr. Ambedkar said, fine, no problem. And then he quoted the famous Sanskrit shlok that Sarvanashe samutpanne ardhyam tejati panditaha. When there is a risk of losing everything, a wise man or woman will be content with 50%. After 3 weeks, he was called again by Panditji and said, I'm sorry, Dr. Ambedkar, but we cannot even get the 50% through. That was the time when Ambedkar on the spot resigned as a cabinet minister and left the cabinet. Now, please understand that Dr. Ambedkar is the only person in our history who, for gender equality, left the post of a cabinet minister. And we never, even the women's organizations never give him any credit for gender equality. So that is the point that I wanted to make. One final point toward the end of his life was about the reorganization of states. In 1955, there was a Fazal Ali Commission's report on reorganization of Indian states. And it came out with a simple formula: one language, one state. And they went ahead with that. The report was accepted. Dr. Ambedkar opposed it very strongly. He said, this is wrong. It should not be one language, one state. It should be one state, one language. So what is the difference? You know, apparently there is no difference. He said it should be, language is very important, but it can't be one language, one state, because if you adopt that formula, then North India will have big states of the size of Uttar Pradesh and so on, because the Hindi belt is there. Whereas in South, there would be a number of small states. And that will create in future a problem between North and South. So what you should do is to have a formula that in the same state, there will be same language. Now, that means in Hindi speaking, there can be multiple states speaking Hindi. No harm. But you cannot use language as the only factor deciding the size of the state. And he recommended bifurcation of Bihar, which happened in 2002. He recommended bifurcation of central province into Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. That again happened in 2002. He had recommended trifurcation of Uttar Pradesh. That has still not happened. So look at the vision of this man. He was talking about possible tensions between North India and South India leading to secession, disintegration of the country. Such visionary national leader, and you call him only as the leader of Dalits? Shame on those who call him only as the leader of Dalits. But this is what we have done all along. At the end of his life, when he adopted Hinduism, when he embraced Buddhism, please understand what would have happened to the future of our country had he adopted any other religion. He adopted Buddhism because Buddhism believes in liberty, equality, and fraternity. He said that these three principles I have not taken from French Revolution. I have taken this principle from Buddhism. One. Second, Buddhism has no caste. That was very important. And most important thing, he said, I wanted a religion which is born in this soil, not born anywhere abroad. Just imagine, had he accepted any other religion, how the future formation of our country would have been different. So Dr. Ambedkar was a multifaceted genius. He was an intellectual, towering intellectual colossus who spent all his life for the betterment of India as a whole. Always he had India nation as a whole. He was, of course, the emancipator of the downtrodden, but he was not limited to that. He was a great scholar, a great visionary, a great national leader who should be in the pantheon of the greatest national leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, and others. That would be the true Shraddhanjali or tribute to this great son of India. I want to thank the organizers for having given me this opportunity to come here and talk to all the students, faculty, and the invited guests on this subject, which is very close to my heart. Once again, I thank you very much, and मेरी बात को मैं विराम देता हूँ. Thank you.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर. आपके उद्बोधन ने हमें डॉक्टर अंबेडकर के छिपे हुए पहलुओं को, उनके विशाल व्यक्तित्व को विभिन्न आयामों से देखने का अवसर दिया. इसके लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. कार्यक्रम को
हेलो जी मैडम. Sir, we have few questions. If you can allow, then we can continue with the question. Hello.
प्रभाकर बंद करा केले ना. Okay, all right. Which पण आवाज काही येत नाहीये.
Hello, जी sir.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, sir. Actually, so can we keep a question answer session later on after finishing all the after completing the speeches from all the speakers?
Or we may take, I think, 2-3 questions. If sir would be leaving, then we may take 2-3 questions.
Okay, all right. I'll take 3 questions.
Okay, sir. Sir, we have one question from Dr. Naresh Patel. He's asking that, do you think that the dream of equality seen by Dr. Ambedkar is fulfilled by us, especially in the concept of women's equality?
Yeah, the dream of equality that Dr. Ambedkar had, and I'm very glad that this question was asked by Naresh. The equality entails men and women both. So we are talking about equality of all human beings in the society. I'm very happy that this question was asked, because the Honorable Minister, when he was speaking, he was talking about Samajik Samarasata. Dr. Ambedkar did not believe in Samarasata. Dr. Ambedkar wanted further step of Samata, not Samarasata. There is a difference between the two, and that Samata that he had in his mind was between all men and all women and all the human beings in our country. Second question. Second question, please.
Sir, there is another question from Dinesh Kumar. He is asking about the change of attitude of people about lower caste.
Dr. Ambedkar, you know, this was Mahatma Gandhi's theory that there would be gradual change, मत परिवर्तन, जिसका उल्लेख उन्होंने किया था कि ये ऐसा ऐसा हो जाएगा, मत परिवर्तन हो जाएगा. In 1936, Gandhiji said that caste system is dying, and in few years it will be no more. How wrong he was. Dr. Ambedkar said, no, nothing doing. Caste system is not going to change. He said, the caste system, we are talking about the attitude. Yeah, please understand the attitude about the lower caste. There are, you see, one of the, जिस कारण के लिए डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर जी ने धर्मांतर किया, उसकी वजह यही थी. एक वजह ये हो सकती है, कैसे मैं समझाता हूं आपको. देखिए कि ये जो अछूत इसका प्रॉब्लम था, अनटचेबिलिटी का प्रॉब्लम था, उसके दो पहलू थे. एक तो दूसरे लोगों का इन लोगों के प्रति देखने का दृष्टिकोण, इनको नीचा देखते थे. और ये इतनी सालों से हो गया था कि दलितों को भी ऐसे लग रहा था कि हम में कुछ कमी है. इसलिए उनमें sort of inferiority complex was created. धर्मांतर से सबसे बड़ी बात ये हो गई कि दलितों ने सो कॉल्ड उच्च जाति के लोगों को कहा, आपको हमारे बारे में जो समझना है वो समझिए, वी डोंट गिव अ डैम. लेकिन हम अपने आप को आपसे और किसी से भी कम नहीं समझते हैं. दिस चेंज ऑफ एटीट्यूड वाज अचीव्ड बाय कन्वर्शन. उसकी एक मिसाल मैं देता हूं. महाराष्ट्र में पहले 1956 के पहले जब बच्चा पैदा होता था तो उसके नाम क्या रखते थे पता है? दगड़ू, धुंडू which means stone, कचरू which means dirt. आपको वो पता है ना, हिंदी मूवी उसमें भी वो दलित है, उसका नाम कचरू, कचरा, ऐसे ही तो ऐसे क्यों नाम रखते थे? आप देखिए, मुझे बताइए. धर्मांतर के बाद में 1956 के बाद में एक भी दगड़ू पैदा नहीं हुआ है, एक भी धुंडू पैदा नहीं हुआ है, एक भी कचरू पैदा नहीं हुआ है. सिद्धार्थ पैदा हुआ है, गौतम पैदा हुआ है. ये जो है ये चेंज ऑफ माइंडसेट है जो दलितों का हो गया है औरों की तरफ. और औरों का जो है दृष्टिकोण है वो बदलने में काफी समय लग सकता है, लेकिन उसके लिए प्रबोधन की आवश्यकता है. ये मेरा मानना है.
जी सर. And sir, the last question is
final question.
There is another question from Mr. Gopal Mantri.
Okay.
Sir is asking that can you throw some light on Dr. Ambedkar's struggle in his personal life?
Okay.
Yes,
देखिए, अंग्रेजी में सवाल है तो मैं अंग्रेजी में जवाब दूंगा. गोपाल मंत्री जी, डॉक्टर अंबेडकर suffered at every step of the way. As a child, he suffered. We all know the stories, how he suffered, how he was not allowed to travel. Tanga episode is very famous. So as a child, he realized that he was treated differently. A barber will not come to shave his head. And all kinds of things were happening तब के जमाने में जो होता था. उसके बाद में even when he became professor in Signam College in Mumbai, the other professor would not drink water from the same pot. When he was a senior officer in the state of Baroda, as a part of Baroda, Maharaj had given him the scholarship to go abroad. So as a part of that, he was required to work in Baroda Maharaja's state. And he was given, and Baroda Maharaja wanted to make him finance minister. But the people there created such problem to him. The files were thrown at him. He was not allowed to go any club. He was not allowed to stay in a decent house. Can you imagine? He had to do cheating. He changed his name and went and stayed in a Parsi lodge. And दिखने में अच्छा ऐसे थे कि उनको पता नहीं चला एक दिन के लिए, लेकिन एक दिन में पता चल गया कि ये दलित आदमी है और वो उधर है. तो पारसी लोग जो कि शांति के पुजारी है, 20 पारसी लट्ठे लेकर आ गए उधर और उनको वहां से निकाल दिया. उनको रहने के लिए घर नहीं मिला और वो जाके एक पेड़ के नीचे, बड़ौदा में वो पेड़ है जहां उसका एक स्मारक अभी बनाया है, वहां जाके वो रो पड़े. तो उनको उनके एजुकेशन के बावजूद, उनकी कितनी भी बड़ी पोजीशन होने के बावजूद भी उनको अछूत ये डिस्क्रिमिनेशन का सामना करना पड़ा. जब वो बड़े लॉयर थे और कोंकण से आ रहे थे, कोंकण से बंबई को कार से आ रहे थे, अपनी कार थी, तो एंड ही वाज अ नेशनल लीडर. आप कैन यू बिलीव दैट हिज कार फेल्ड एंड ही वेंट टू द नियर बाय विलेज. Nobody allowed to enter him. Nobody gave him even water. Can you imagine? For a national leader, water was not given when he was there in the village. So he went back to, when he reached Mumbai, he locked himself in a room and cried. He came out stronger. So what I'm saying is, in spite of his achievements, in spite of his intelligence, in spite of all his contribution, this attitude about his loneliness coming from the caste never went away and he had to suffer. But आप सुनिए, महात्मा गांधी जी ने कहा था कि डॉक्टर अंबेडकर जी को इतना सहना पड़ा है कि अगर डॉक्टर अंबेडकर मेरे मुंह पर थूकते हैं तो भी मैं जबान से कुछ भी उनका विरोध नहीं कर सकता हूं, इतने अपराध हमने उनके किए. श्री महात्मा गांधी जी ने कहा है कि डॉक्टर अंबेडकर अगर मेरे मुंह पर थूकते हैं तो भी मैं उनको मना नहीं कर सकता हूं, इतना बड़ा अन्याय हम लोगों ने उनके ऊपर किया है. ये तो वास्तविकता है. मैं आप सबका क्वेश्चंस का स्वागत करता हूं. मैं जानता हूं कि और बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस आपके हैं, लेकिन वो रहने दीजिए, क्योंकि जब आपके दिमाग में क्वेश्चन रहेंगे तो आप सवाल ढूंढने की कोशिश करेंगे. मैंने बहुत सारी किताबें डॉक्टर अंबेडकर जी के ऊपर लिखी है, आप उनको देखिए, उनको पढ़िए, और मेरी इंटरव्यूज वगैरह भी सब जगह उपलब्ध है, वो आप देखिए, आपको जवाब मिल जाएगा. नहीं मिलता है तो मुझे ईमेल भेज दीजिए, मैं आपके इसका सवालों का जवाब जरूर दूंगा.
जी सर, थैंक यू वेरी मच. थैंक्स अ लॉट सर.